now brings you something to think about.
Shalom and greetings. Thank you for tuning in to Something to Think About. I'm his servant, Jeff Gaines, and this episode of Something to Think About is entitled Freedom for All. This episode is intended to be a prelude to an upcoming series that will give insight into the crisis that the world in general is experiencing. But in particular, this episode is a precursor to the upcoming series that will reveal scriptural prophecy about the United States of America. The upcoming series will address specifically the catastrophes that are happening in the United States of America. So, let us begin this episode, the forerunner, Freedom for All. And I pray that it is enough to bring you back. We're living in perilous times. There are struggles going on all around the world for freedom by so many people that feel and are oppressed. Even the proclaimed home of the brave and land of the free is entrenched in an ongoing struggle for freedom. It started with the Native Americans, then incorporated the Black African slaves, and now encompasses all people of color. Let us examine the current state of affairs of the United States of America by way of a story. We will walk, not run, through this story, that we might be able to grow and move from just knowing to truly understanding the origin of the United States of America. Not so long ago, in the land today we call the United States of America, it was governed by a powerful nation. Before the forming of the United States of America, there lived a segment of the people that were taken advantage of and felt oppressed, depressed, and afflicted by this very strong and controlling nation. After a period of time, the segment of the people that were taken advantage of and oppressed, depressed, and afflicted refused to continue to tolerate living under this suppression. Despite all of the odds being against them, these people rebelled against the very strong and dictating nation. Miraculously, they were successful in their rebellion and established their own nation, what we today call the United States of America. Now, those of us that understand who the Most High is will consider this a great blessing from Yahweh Elohim upon those people. Maybe even conjuring up in our minds how the Most High allowed David to defeat Goliath, or how the children of Israel, though they were small in numbers, to defeat much more powerful nations. And one would think that these people would remember what it is like to be taken advantage of and oppressed, depressed, and afflicted. Now, these people, as they are establishing their nation and a constitution by which they would live by, proclaim freedom for all of its citizens. It even goes so far as to create a Bill of Rights to guarantee the freedom for all of its citizens. Sadly, this new nation of the United States of America does not acknowledge or give thanks to Yahweh Elohim for their deliverance. As these previously taken advantage of, oppressed, depressed, and afflicted people are establishing their Constitution and their Bill of Rights, there is no reference of the Most High. To make matters even worse, if they could be, these people that were taken advantage of, oppressed, depressed, and afflicted, that are establishing this new nation of the United States of America, are themselves taking advantage of, oppressing, depressing, and afflicting segments of their new nation. So, from the very origin of the United States of America, it begs the question, if freedom is truly for all. Let all of us that believe in righteousness and justice, all which comes from the Most High, be reminded of a parable told by the Messiah, Yeshua. The Messiah shares of a servant that was indebted to the king of the land and was not able to pay. And the king was going to sell him and his family and take everything from him for repayment. The servant pleaded for grace and mercy from the king. And the king had compassion and granted his request and totally forgave the servant's debt. After this same servant sought out a fellow servant that owed him a debt far less than that he owed the king. And his fellow servant was not able to pay. His fellow servant asked him for grace and mercy. But the servant that had been given grace and mercy from the king demanded that the fellow servant pay the debt owed to him right now. The fellow servant could not pay the debt. So the servant that had been given grace and mercy from the king had his fellow servant thrown into jail. But as fate would have it, the king that had given grace and mercy to this servant was informed of this evil and wicked act, and the servant was tortured by the king. The new nation, the United States of America, that proclaimed freedom for all of its citizens, but themselves took advantage and oppressed, depressed, and afflicted segments of the new nation, actually prospered peacefully for a while. But spiritual judgment seems to come upon the new nation. And there is a division within the United States of America. Some believe the taking advantage of, the oppression, depression, and affliction to segments of the nation was wrong. Interestingly, the new nation cannot have it both ways. The states cannot be united if there is a division within them. Sadly, we still see this today, begging the question on the play on words of the United States of America. Because of this division, the United States of America fights a civil war between the two groups, tearing the nation in half. So, once again, the claim freedom for all is in question. Remember the parable we were just reminded of. When the Most High gives His grace and mercy, it must be reciprocated, or the one that Yahweh Elohim gave grace and mercy will face His judgment. We cannot forget that we said in the forming of this new nation, the United States of America, it was missing an important piece. And that important piece was during the creating and establishing of their Constitution and their Bill of Rights. That they do not acknowledge or even make reference to the Most High. The United States of America as a whole, undivided, never does acknowledge nor submits to be obedient to Yahweh Elohim and Him alone. So, the United States of America never heals and remains divided. This is to this day a continuous running battle that continues to escalate because all of its citizens expect freedom for all. So, what do you think happens to this nation, the United States of America, that proclaimed freedom for all of its citizens, but has continued to take advantage and oppress, depress, and afflict segments of the people? The Messiah shares with us all in the scripture, every kingdom divided against itself is brought to desolation, and a house divided against a house falleth. We are witnessing the outcome of the United States of America that proclaims freedom for all, but ignores and rejects obedience to the Most High and Him alone. Yahweh Elohim makes it clear in His scripture the two most important things His creation can do is to, one, love the Most High with all thy heart, with all thy mind, with all thy soul. And second, to love thy neighbor as thyself. The United States of America is being judged now. As we saw in the parable shared by Yeshua of the evil and wicked servant, we should not miss that the evil and wickedness of some brings judgment upon all of the United States of America. There cannot be freedom for all where there is no love for thy neighbor. Instead of freedom for all, we have self-centeredness and bigoted factions based upon the color of one's skin. Instead of freedom for all, there is financial, social, and judicial injustices based on how dark a person's skin color is. Instead of freedom for all, there is fear for all that are black in the United States of America. We need to remember the United States of America's government has from the beginning had opportunities to acknowledge and submit to obedience to the Most High and Him alone, but has refused to collectively do so, showing us all that we should not look for government oversight regarding freedom for all. It must be and has to be a spiritual change that brings on spiritual awareness. The United States of America's government to this point has not been capable of hearing from all of its citizens that there needs to be freedom for all. But there appears to be a spiritual change happening amongst some of the people across the United States of America, bringing on a spiritual awareness upon some of the citizens of the United States of America to love thy neighbor as thyself. But sadly, the recurring theme of the United States of America is that it is not united, but divided. As we stated earlier, that the evil and wickedness of some brings judgment upon all of the United States of America. Yahweh Elohim shares with us that if His people will humble themselves and pray and seek His face and turn from their wicked ways, then, and only then, will He hear from heaven and will forgive their sin and will heal their land. Remember, we shared earlier that the nation, the United States of America, has never healed from the Civil War. It has remained divided all of this time. In order for the land of the United States to be healed, the states must unite and collectively humble themselves, pray, seek the face of the Most High, and turn from their wicked ways. There has never been freedom for all in the United States of America, but has always been self-centeredness and bigoted factions, financial, social, and judicial injustices, and fear for all that are Black in the United States of America. When the United States of America humbles itself to the righteous and just commandments of the Most High, then and only then can it proclaim freedom for all of its citizens. Let us grow and move from just knowing to truly understanding the fact that none of us have to wait for this nation of the United States of America or any other nation to obtain freedom for all. The Messiah shares with everyone that believes in Him and continues in his word, that they will know the truth, and that truth will make them free. Freedom for all is a gift offered to all by Yahweh Elohim, but it is not without requirements upon the receiver of the gift. Like all other gifts that have a requirement before receiving, one must truly believe in and trust the deliverer of the gift making the request for the requirements before they are willing to follow all of their requirements. The promissory note is only as valuable as the belief in the one assuring payment. I pray all that hear this message can and will believe and trust in Yahweh Elohim, the deliverer of the gift. Remember, continuing in the Messiah's word is a prerequisite to knowing the truth, which will make you free. Let us not have our gift of freedom for all made void because we have not followed and continue in following the requirements presented to us in the scripture. Just as the scripture shares, to know the truth and be obedient to the truth makes you free, not knowing the truth and being disobedient to the truth puts you and keeps you in bondage. As we stated at the beginning, this episode is a precursor to the upcoming series of the 400-year prophecy. Sadly, misinformation today runs rampant. And even worse, people are more likely to accept the misinformation as truth without any validation. Yahweh Elohim provided for all that seek to grow and move from just knowing to truly understanding the prophecy of what will come to pass, as well as when. So, let us truly begin understanding what the scripture has to say about the 400-year prophecy. It is safe to say that practically the entire world has been told the story of the 400 years of bondage suffered by the children of Israel in Egypt. We will allow scripture to validate scripture so that we can gain scriptural understanding of the 400-year prophecy that's shared in Genesis chapter 15, verses 12 through 16. We will not start the reading of the scripture during this episode. But if you're so inclined, you can read the passage and be ready for the upcoming episode of the 400-year prophecy. As we've shared in previous episodes, in order to truly move and grow from just knowing to truly understanding, we must first identify the who, what, when, where, how, and why of what scripture is sharing with us. I pray that you will return next week and continue to fellowship with me, to move from just knowing to truly understanding the word of the Most High. I would like to encourage you to visit his servant's website and YouTube channel that will be shown at the end for more teachings that will allow Scripture to validate Scripture, sharing and revealing all the requirements of the Scripture in order that all that follow can receive their gift of freedom for all. This concludes Freedom for All, the precursor, the prelude to the series of the 400-year prophecy, which we will start during our next episode. I want to invite you to come and fellowship and worship the Shabbat, the Sabbath, with the Ecclesia every Saturday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. In addition, please join the Ecclesia every Wednesday evening at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for prayer. The link for both is provided on his servant's website, which will be shown momentarily. Something to think about. If you're seeking a blessing, be a blessing. If this episode of Something to Think About has been a blessing, assist us with your time, talents, and finances in continuing to grow and move from just knowing to truly understanding the word of the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. Peace and blessings.
His servant encourages you and prays that you will continue with him on the journey of growing and moving from just knowing to understanding the word of the Most High, Yahweh Elohim. To support you on your journey, his servant offers the following resources. His servant email address. Please feel free to reach out to his servant at any time with any questions, concerns, suggestions, and/or comments. His servant website and his servant YouTube channel. You are encouraged to subscribe to be alerted of new content. In addition, his servant recommends reading or listening to the beginning of Scriptural Truth, Volume 1. It affords a strong beginning foundation in not just knowing, but understanding the Scripture.